Hey guys, welcome to this new video. Today it's gonna be an interview about launching successfully an event business in Vietnam. So you know how important is it to have an offline strategy if you wanna get started and kickstart a new entrepreneurship project in Vietnam. Using events can be a very powerful marketing strategy. So in this video, we're gonna discuss about that. I invited Wes, who has been successfully launching consecutive events in Vietnam, working with reputable local brands. So you're gonna learn everything in this video. Let's get started. Hi Wes, I'm very happy to have you today to discuss about your entrepreneurship journey moving from the US to Vietnam and what did you implemented in Vietnam. Can you share us a little bit your story moving overseas and starting that business in Vietnam?
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. And so my story in Vietnam started first with coming over to following my dad, actually. And so I was working at first for him as a associate business analyst. And then after 6 months, I moved from that within the same organization to marketing. And during that same time, I also took on a second marketing gig as the marketing manager for Heart of Darkness Craft Brewery here in Ho Chi Minh City. And then left that, continued on with my full-time job for my father. And then during that time, I also started Omega Digital back in 2017 in August as a sort of side brand of my own to test my digital marketing skills out with. And so I ended up going full-time with that after quitting my full-time job on May 5th, 2018. So about a year later, less than a year later, I went full-time with my side brand. And yeah, ever since then, that's what I've been doing.
So your company is Omega Digital, right? Your marketing agency. First, just to illustrate a little bit the topic, like why do you think Vietnam is such a great place for young entrepreneurs to start their entrepreneurship journey in the digital?
So Vietnam's a great place in general because it's got a really young population, also a highly educated one. So its population has pretty high education level, and also smartphone usage and kind of tech savviness in general is also really high among their young population. So I think this gives them a lot of an edge over other Southeast Asian nations and even more mature markets like the US, for example, or China even.
Yeah, we're going to discuss a little bit more about how is it when you come with a foreign background and a foreign expertise to try to sell to your course, because you manage through your agency to also sell your services to local companies. So I'm pretty curious about that. But I would like this video to be focused about what we've built in terms of the events that you run and you launch it in Ho Chi Minh City, especially. How did you get started? How did you get that idea to launch that big digital marketing meetup?
Yeah, it started originally as a joint effort between 3 different parties. And then we had a bit of a falling out between the 3 of us. And so we continued on our separate ways. I partnered with a new partner for the event who is also my new agency partner. His name is Christian. He runs V-Based Digital and Use location-based advertising services in Singapore. And great guy all around. And the way they all began was through collaboration, really, and wanting to give the community something to gather around and something to, I honestly, have fun with as well and connect people through.
Yes, so I think we met the first time maybe in October 2020 when you launched your first meetup. And I remember I was surprised that you got like 150 plus attendees, and then the next one was something maybe 200, etc. And it kept growing. How did you manage to get like such a success? What was the secret sauce behind that event?
Yeah, so I kind of went about the first events with this idea of like a nightclub promoter, because with nightclubs, your grand opening is basically everything. And so I knew that this event had to be the biggest and the best that we've seen. And so I went all out kind of with the sponsors for the lucky draw prizes, and went and got like 10 different sponsors between myself and Susan and our other agency partner, and um, got photo and video from our friends at the Cake Collective through Kevin Lee and Milan Smets, and kind of just went all out and had a huge venue with the Hard Rock Cafe and live music and everything. And it was a kind of a perfect event. And then afterwards, of course, we collected everyone's emails and then sent them all the photos and videos afterwards. And even if they didn't make it to the event, they then had photos and videos and knew what they missed. So we kind of primed an audience as well to keep them on the lookout for future meetups, and have this kind of captive audience.
Very, very interesting. And actually, there are a lot of competition in Ho Chi Minh City. You have a lot of co-working space already organizing events, but still you manage to gather an audience of this amount of people, maybe half expats, half locals, right? Or maybe 60% expats, 60%, 40% locals. How was it the behind of the scene and then organizing such an event? Was it mostly like everything online on the digital, the way you promoted it? Or was it also, I don't know, outdoor street promotions to gather such a number of people?
Yeah, it was actually all pretty much online. Most of the promotion was done through social media, through inviting people who went to past events, friends of friends, getting more people in as co-hosts so that we can further the reach and the spread of the events and the awareness of it. The goal each time was also to further increase the number of people who responds to the event and the number of people who have seen the event. So the only real goal of each event is to grow it more each time in different ways.
And the behind, I guess, also you were doing it to promote your own consulting agency, right? And your partners also promoted their brands. How is it you kind of had a deal with each other, and then someone come here, you can give them their business card, you do some kind of self-promotion, right? And then later on you could upsell some of the people coming there.
So the only way that we sell people is organically at the event itself. So we don't use the email list to market to them. We only use the email list for updating them on the event. That's one thing that we've kept consistent throughout this whole time. And we just only approach people during the event itself in order to sell our services to them. The brand awareness that we get through the event is just a secondary kind of byproduct to our main objective of connecting people.
Yeah, because of course I have people like, you know, coming to Asia and then asking me, for instance, to set up companies. And then some people are interested into maybe launching an event, you know, because of course, as we mentioned, you have some kind of personal branding that is already there. And then after, your goal is more to gather people, to connect with each other, and then to potentially sell services when you have this crowd coming to your event. What I found there, and what I think is quite impressive, is also you manage to sell to local companies, right? And usually we have this assumption that as an expat, someone coming here with our foreign background, it would be hard to match with the local market. But still, you manage to really also convince local companies to use your services. How did you do? I mean, how did you convince them that a guy from the US would help them in their marketing?
So the way I kind of went about that at first was doing work for free, actually, for local brands. One of which was Heart of Darkness, actually. So when I was doing marketing management for them, that was free. That was just to kind of upskill and see what I can do, because my current job at the time was limiting me too much in terms of my self-growth. And so I kind of made a name for myself locally through my work with Heart of Darkness. And so that's what would be the biggest and fastest and best way, I would say, for most people to grow their reputation in Vietnam is by going for something local and something that connects with the locals, or something that's new and innovative and on the bleeding edge of trends. So craft beer was the one that I was kind of helping drive. And so, yeah, I think that would be the best way, is starting local, starting small.
And in terms of vertical, do you think even, for instance, I don't know, in real estate, in finance, in like complicated industries, someone can come with a foreign background and kind of sell, I don't know, marketing, communication, etc., strategies to kind of big players in the on the local market?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Honestly, I think it's mostly about word of mouth, like you said. So if you can get some free work in really quickly, really fast, and then get some testimonials out of it, if you have that social proof behind your work and you've made a name for yourself somewhat, people know who you are. You have a brand behind your name as well. It lends a lot of professionalism to your image, and as opposed to just being a pure freelancer or someone with just a name but without a brand.
And so how do you see the importance of like the foreign value added compared to a local firm? Again, we mentioned before, but here there is a huge competition, right? If you are looking for an agency helping you to do Facebook ads, for instance, you will find a lot of local players. So how can you distinguish yourself and tell them that, I don't know, with your certain expertise, you can really help them, and of course, maybe charge them more?
Something that it's funny, we were just talking about branding. That's what I would say is the biggest differentiator. So which agencies have the strongest brands? Not many of them have much time to work on their brands, since so many of us are kind of swamped doing client work. We're busy working in our businesses rather than on our businesses. So I think the agencies that do the best are those that take the time to build up their own brand, build up a kind of creative style, maybe even, and kind of stand for something, and maybe be different even in terms of maybe their values or their visual identity compared to the rest. For example, with Omega Digital, we're different because in terms of visual identity, we use black and red, which generally are not colors that you see together very often, especially in the East, because black usually means death. So that's one example right there.
What about now the opportunities in Southeast Asia? Do you think like is it easy to launch something? You still mentioned that you already mentioned that you have to maybe sell some free gig or help people for free at the beginning, and then at a second stage you can start to really monetize a certain brand. Do you see there will still be a lot of opportunities in Southeast Asia in digital?
I definitely think there's still opportunities in Southeast Asia for digital marketing, especially. It's still in its very early stages over there, so there's still a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of people entering the space. There's a lot more companies getting into digital marketing, especially with COVID-19. So we've seen a lot of people enter into this digital space and start advertising, for example, on Google and Facebook, who have never ever done anything like that before. So you'll have like old brands, even, for example, doing Facebook ads now, such as like Tan Tan Peanuts in Vietnam, a very, very old snack. They're now doing Facebook ads.
So interesting perspective, Wes, about the opportunities in Southeast Asia in digital. Obviously, 2021, especially the third quarter, has been very tough here in Ho Chi Minh City. We got also issues with visa. I mean, many people left the country because of the current wave happening in Ho Chi Minh City. What would be the rebound for you? Like many people are expecting that rebound and saying like, wow, there will be even more opportunities. Is it something that you also think that will happen here in Vietnam?
Yes, definitely. I see a lot of opportunities, especially in the digital space in Vietnam. You'll see a lot more people entering into online advertising, for example, because it will always remain a reliable source of brand awareness and leads and purchases, even in e-commerce, things like that. Despite what's going on outside in the world, like a pandemic, for example. So you'll see a lot more people flocking to digital advertising and putting a lot more value into it as a result. So you'll see a lot more work for agencies and demand for digital marketers in particular, front end developers, UX and UI developers, things like that. You'll see a lot more demand for, I think, in the coming years in Vietnam as a result of all of this rebound.
Great, Wes. And so finally, final word for the people who would want to come here for opportunities and probably use also events to kind of launch their own personal branding. What's the key takeaway you would tell them to get started?
My biggest advice would just be to just start in the first place. That's all it really took for me to get the ball rolling. The opportunities out in there in Vietnam, there are a lot. Especially considering how young of a market it is. There are a lot more there compared to older, more mature markets, such as the US, for example, where competition is much fiercer.
Thank you for your insight and everything that you shared today to launch successful events in Ho Chi Minh City. I hope you will come back from the US to kind of say hi again, and we can catch up in real person in Ho Chi Minh City. I will leave in the description all the information of Wes. So if you want to check a little bit what Wes is providing, you can check everything below in the description. Thanks again, Wes. And I see you in the next video.
No problem.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Wes.
Bye-bye.
And I'ma get it right, then I'll sight like